be.
The bed, Flip, the bed. Last week,
Huddle around as Climbing the Pocket Network presents Jason and the boys talking everything Minnesota Vikings. Watch the countdown timer.
Away we go again. Lost like I'm lost on purpose. If found, please return to. Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before when I get home, Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before when I get home, My vision blurry, I'm paying the cost. I'm not enough. In fact, it's even better when you're not involved. When I miss your call, I feel that I evolve. Cause as you mentioned, I am more dependent than a college student on their parents or an old person on their pension. Not to mention, when you hit me on WhatsApp without attention, and a bad booty bitch watch, then she looks tempting. Look, my Achilles heel is when I say what I feel, you say, baby, come home, and I don't think that I will, cause all this motherfucking stress is gonna get me killed. Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before when I get home, Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before when I get home,
Huddle around as Climbing the Pocket Network presents Jason and the boys talking everything Minnesota Vikings.
No, I can't play these games. No, you can't disrespect and call me names. Sending me signals like you about to switch lanes. Well, go on, do your thing. Go on, do your thing. I mix champagne and propane, get lit. I'm trying to forget all the things that you said, all the things that we did. Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before when I get home, Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before when I get home, Watch the breakdown. And I get home when I get home. You just gonna act like we normal now. Good luck. Don't you try to call me with that bullshit, telling me you're sorry. You act too quick. That's somebody else's problem now. You're somebody else's problem now. Don't you try to call me with that bullshit, telling me you're sorry. You act too quick. That's somebody else's problem now. You're somebody else's problem now.
Hey everybody, it's Dave here from Good Morning Gallahorn, and I'm going to be joining Climbing the Pocket Networks in the huddle tonight. Yes, we're talking live football on a Tuesday night, and it is Vlogmas 2020 Day 8, the 8th day in a row that Climbing the Pocket Network has brought you live NFL and especially Minnesota Vikings football talk. But to pass it off to the host in the center, in the prime, here is Mr. Jason Brown.
so aggressive, David. So aggressive, but I love it. I love it. We're here.
Always.
We're back.
Like
We're
football.
live. David goes full game show host, and it just brings me joy every single time we're here. We got a different crew, but we're going to chop it up. We're going to talk some Vikings. David already introduced himself. I am Jason, and I'm going to pass it over to the one, the only Flip Mozzie. And let's get this thing going. Flip, how you doing? How you been?
I'm doing well. Skull Vikes. I've been on this show, been doing the Vlogmas 3 days in a row now. Hope y'all aren't getting sick of me. but I'm a Vikings fan for life, so you're not getting rid of me anytime soon.
Flip putting in that work. Well, let's talk about it because, one of the things that people have been saying a little bit here, Vikings Jerome and some other folks in the comments saying some things, being a little upset with our not really jumping on, the winning ways of the team here in recent weeks. But the Vikings, they did something, albeit against a not great team, but they did some things that they don't normally do. And they've done it in a couple weeks in a row. When things start to go sideways, we generally have just expected them to continue to go sideways. The beginning of that game, if you were anywhere around Viking social media, basically everyone was calling this a repeat of the Bills game from a couple years ago. But this Vikings team, they figured it out. Flip was probably the first person in our group chat to say, hey, the defense is going to tighten things up a little bit. They're going to get this thing figured out. They're going to turn this into a game. And that's exactly what happened. It went longer than it should have. Neither team seemed like they wanted to win. But at the end of the day, the Vikings, they took care of the business they were supposed to take care of. They won the game. And now we're at 500, Flip. So you're back. Vikings at 500. Let's talk about it. Can we get excited now? Can we start to look ahead? Can we maybe start to think about this team doing some things on a playoff run? I mean, we're in a spot right now. If the season was to end, Vikings in there, gonna be able to make a little bit of noise in the playoffs. We got a great offense. Offense travels. Talk to me, Flip. We excited now? We ready?
Yeah, we're ready. I made a promise. I'm not a man who goes back on his word. Get to 500. We can start talking about actual playoff chances, what this team can do, what this team hopefully will do, and the path to get there. I know the playoff odds better than anybody in Viking Nation right now. I promise you that. Okay, so I'm ready to go. I'm ready to see this. Jalen knows 6-6. Let's go. Let's talk about the upside for this Minnesota Vikings season. Finally, I've been waiting for this mode, and I'm excited for it.
All right, so talk to me about it. As you're thinking about it, you're thinking about this game. I guess with it, I feel like this is the second game in a row that the Vikings have come out on the positive end of things, but people haven't been as excited as you would maybe think they would be with the team on a run, getting hot late in the season, which is what we always hear you want to be coming into the playoffs. You want a team that's coming in hot, great offense, wide receivers now seemingly getting more involved, more volume here in recent weeks, which is something that I know Flip's been talking about. Do you see any shifts in the way things are going that maybe make you feel like this is a Vikings team that, for all their flaws, and we know they have them, could be one that gets hot and does some things down the stretch and potentially into the playoffs?
Yeah, so there's a way to talk about this looking back and a way to talk about this, looking forward. Looking back, we need to be really mindful about strength of opponent. And this is something, if Eric Eager were on, it's something he always refers to. It's not just about if you're winning or losing, who are you winning or losing against? Who are your defensive performances coming against? Who are your offensive successes coming against? So if you look at the Vikings right now, they have seen a really good amount of progress on the defensive side of the ball. That's a reason to be optimistic. The hedge there, the balance is that this has come against some of the poorest offenses in the league, against Mike Glennon, against the Bears, against the Detroit Lions, who are just a complete mess right now. So you're trying to weigh how good the Vikings defense is, how much those young guys have developed, because we've seen Cameron Dancer, we've seen Ifeadi Odenigbo, Jordan Brailford getting in there. They didn't have Eric Kendricks, and they still held the Jaguars to 16 points if you remove that pick six. And that's progress. But at the end of the day, the Vikings are 12th in defensive DVOA, but they haven't done it against a very tough schedule. And that's why the Tampa game is so exciting, because now we get to say, okay, do it against a real team. And if you look at why the Vikings are struggling, they're struggling just doing basic things. I mean, so much of the problems are special teams, simple blocking and tackling. So it's a quick fix. If Mike Zimmer can round this team up and get them focused and doing the simple things right, then we can see progress in big ways. That should excite Vikings fans.
It should.
All right,
And
Dave, talk to me, man.
I was wondering, the way Flip was talking about, we've had some of these growth spurts, if you want to talk about that, because this is a young squad, especially on the defense, against lesser offenses, right? But what not a better time to learn and to grow against those lessers. Now they're stepping up into, if you want to call it, the teenage years of their season, and they've got the test against Tampa Bay, because Tampa's a whole other level that they're going to have to play. And I agree with Flip. They've got to clean up the silly stuff, the undisciplined stuff, be it on special teams, be it on defense, be it on offense for that matter. But this gives them, if you're looking at as an optimist, the opportunity to do just that. Now, I heard
that's
today,
what we want. That's what we want.
Yeah, that is what we want,
Dave.
And I heard today that if you take the PFF scores of all our top skill positions, we have the highest rated skill positions on offense in the league.
Yeah, and that's that's where I just get real hesitant, because the first thing you got to know about PFF scores is they don't account for strength of opponent. They don't account for difficulty of the people you're playing. And the Vikings have, again, played, I think the Vikings are 9th in offensive DVOA against the 29th toughest schedule in terms of defensive they've played in the NFL. And so the way I look at it is, you look at this entire season, those guys, they got tested on the first day of school going against the Green Bay Packers. Didn't work out. They got, tossed around that field. Tested first day, failed the test on the first day of school. Should now, if I'm a student, is it fair for me to get tested on the first day of school? No, that's what I'm supposed to be here to do. So now we've got 2.5 months, 3 months of school and a curriculum that these kids have been through. And now it's time for another test. Mm-hmm. So let's see how much they've learned.
Exactly.
And the one thing I will say, though, Flip, yes, PFF grades are not weighted by opponent. I find that the further away we get from the ball, the less of an issue that becomes, because they are grading the process, what they did in the trenches. Yes, very much we can see a very strict relationship between the quality of opponent, especially when we're looking at, a Bradbury and some of those other guys, when they go up against folks and they're overmatched. You see that right away. But I mean, Justin Jefferson is good. Adam Thielen, very 100%. Good. Dalvin Cook, very good. I think that those things, we know that those guys are all very, very good. I think the only place that I would maybe push back on that metric a little bit is just adding up the sum of the positional players doesn't really get it done. You need to figure out how those players are being leveraged. And that was another, positive sign. And it's something Miles has talked about in the last couple of weeks, that the running game has not been as efficient in recent weeks. Teams are just saying, we're going to load up and we're going to do what we can to make this as difficult as possible for Dalvin Cook to really get going. And eventually, it hasn't been seamless by any stretch of the imagination. There's been some bumps along the way. But at the end of it all, we've been forced into feeding the most important players on our offense outside of Kirk Cousins, who are actually the wide receivers, though folks want to tell us it's the running back. The receivers are what will take us where we need to go because of how good they are and how much more efficient it is to run the offense through them. So, Flip, given what we've seen, I know that you mentioned, you said it on social and some other places, do you feel like more of this is what we want? Because you've also said at times that you don't want to see too much Kirk Cousins. You feel like if we become too Kirk Cousins heavy, then it'll all blow up in our face. So tell me how you see the Vikings striking that balance, given that they have been getting Jefferson more involved. They have been obvious. Well, when Thielen's here, Thielen's getting the ball. Kirk does kind of vapor lock on Thielen when he's around a little bit sometimes, but those guys are getting the ball. They're getting downfield. Do you want more of that, or do you want him to try to wind it back the other way and feed Dalvin 30 times a game?
And there's a lot of nuance here that I'm glad we're having the show. Glad we're talking about it because it's hard to discuss on social media. There's a lot of nuance here. The Vikings have shown that when you have Kirk Cousins as quarterback, balance helps that guy. And I know what the stats say, but balance helps Kirk Cousins more than it helps other quarterbacks. And you pair Kirk Cousins with our offensive line and their pass protections. Again, they need balance too, because the Vikings, when they pass the ball, you see catastrophic failures in every game they go pass heavy. In the Atlanta game, they went pass heavy. Offensive line couldn't do it. Kirk couldn't do it. This game against Jacksonville, Kirk couldn't do it. Offensive line, fumble, interception, tons of points given up. Any game, Green Bay, there's multiple examples of why you need to balance with Kirk Cousins. That being said, when they do pass, I want those attempts going to wide receivers as much as possible. Look, y'all, it's week 13. This is the week 13 against the Jaguars. That was the first time that Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson had double-digit targets in the same game this year. And I'm going to be frank.
We want to see more of that.
We want to see more of that. Look, there's only 4 playmakers that I want the Vikings to pass to, and that's Jefferson, Thielen, Dalvin Cook, and Irv Smith Jr. And honestly, F the other guys. I don't care if they have a stat sheet that has 15 targets for Thielen, 15 targets for Jefferson, a couple Cook screens, a couple key Irv third down conversions. I'm Gucci. I don't need to see Chad Beebe. I don't need to see BC Johnson or Tyler Conklin. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. When you pass, know that the wide receivers, every pass they call should be designed to go to Thielen, Jefferson, or Irv Smith Jr. And that's where I'm saying leverage your wide receivers, but balance the offense overall.
They may have to this week because I believe Tampa is either the best or one of the top 3 in run defense.
Yeah. The run defense will be stopped. Mm-hmm. And you combine that with the explosive plays they need. Dalvin Cook, he has already passed his highest amount of attempts in a single season, and there's a month left to go in the year. So him taking a backseat in the Tampa Bay game, I think it's expected, to the point where I hope the Vikings know that the offense has to go through not just the pass game, but specifically through Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen.
The Rams and the Chiefs, they showed us the way to attack this Tampa Bay team. It'll be interesting to see if, those learnings that, all of us were able to watch and see, where they match up against, our offensive philosophy and what we would prefer to do. And, the quotes that, made the rounds on Twitter and people starting to, make jokes about it, but where Kirk says things like, we're going to keep running it even if we know it's not doing anything, because in the fourth quarter, we expect to pop one. And so I'm very, very curious to see how this game plays out, to see if we do what some of the smart teams did and just say, what's a running game? We're probably not going to do it, but Carlton Banks can't stay in front. Sorry, Carlton Davis can't stay in front of either of our wide receivers. Yeah. So we're just gonna throw it over their head all day. So I'll be curious to see how that goes down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, David, you look like you had something to say. I felt like there was
I agree with 100%. The only thing I was thinking of is pass to set up an occasional, instead of the play action pass, which is a pass play, as much as my buddy Drew disagrees. To pass, and then if you want to late in the game catch him off guard with Dalvin for 25, 30 yards, I'm cool with that. But it should be and I think we're going to have to focus more on the pass this week, and I look forward to seeing how they respond. I expect them to do well. I hope they do. And we're going to be here cheering them on the whole way.
I mean, it's just interesting to see how the offense has been forced to adjust. Where, I mean, Jacksonville, first off, like, we went into this game, like, who do they have on their defensive line? Even the announcers in the game were like, I don't know who this guy is.
We should have been able to run for 200 yards.
We should have.
Yeah, and our rushing success rate in this game was, 26%, according to, running backs don't matter box scores. So that in and of itself is concerning. But, one of the viewers did just say, like, and it's something, Flip, again, you brought up earlier in the season, like, if Dalvin is in fact this important to our offense, should we be running him the way that we are? Because it looks like maybe it's starting to wear on him a little bit. Like, you still see those glimpses of Dalvin being Dalvin, but running him into a brick wall 30 times in a game doesn't seem to be the wisest course of action, given that we're going to need him if we're going to do anything in the playoffs. And it was funny to hear, like, them talking about Jacksonville spelling, Robinson in the game because they didn't want to give him too many touches. Right. They wanted to have him fresh. And then contrast that to us and how we've approached Dalvin, where, Madison has generally been a pretty good backup. So in this game, is that another thing that you'll be looking for? That if we do decide to run, that we are getting some more balance even in how those carries are distributed? Or is it, Dalvin's our guy, so we just got to ride him until the wheels fall off and hope that it's enough to get us into the promised land?
And I'm staying positive here. I think I've got some buy-in. See, Jerome's not yelling at me anymore. Cliff's not yelling at me, so I've got some buy-in. We just got to be honest and be, we know what we want. I want Dalvin to have a reduced workload so we can keep him fresh throughout the entire season. But it's like the same thing with the run pass in Minnesota. You have to stop the run in order for the Vikings to realize that they're actually good at passing. And it's the same thing with Dalvin Cook. It's like, we don't try to use other running backs until Dalvin Cook gets injured. Like, why can't we just have this forward thinking where we reduce the risk of injury on Dalvin, we reduce the burden of passing late in the game by doing some of those things earlier to help out our players. And that's really frustrating. So do I want it to happen? Yes. But do I think that they're going to go into this game and reduce Dalvin Cook to 10 to 15 carries? Yeah. I think we just all know that's not true unless we're losing by double digits.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't want that.
No.
We definitely don't want that.
No, it shouldn't come to that. Yeah.
Now, what happens, Flip, if the Vikings win this game? How does it affect their playoffs?
We just book hotel rooms for the Super Bowl.
I mean, there is a numerical standpoint, like we went over last night. If the Vikings lose to Tampa Bay, their playoff chances drop to 21%. If the Vikings win against the Buccaneers on Sunday, their playoff odds increase to 71%. So it's a 50% swing in what we need to happen in regards to the playoffs. There's a lot of fans out there who are thinking we just need to go 2-2, that we can, just beat the Bears and Lions and get in. That's unlikely. You need this win for the numbers and just for the pride, attitude, momentum that we're seeing this team build over the past few months. It's a huge game in terms of just what are we capable of? And answering that question will help a long way, not just this year, but in years beyond.
Yes.
David, so how do you want to see us attack, which seems even crazy to say, but I'm going to say it anyway, see us attack a Tom Brady in this game?
I would love lots of pressure and a heavy pass rush, but we don't have that. So it's got to be our defensive ends need to contain, and defensive tackles as best we can to push. They're not going to. Tom Brady's going to have time to read. So that means our two safeties, Harrison Smith and Harris, are going to have to cover the youngsters. Now, The good thing about that is the youngsters are getting better. Tampa has a lot of weapons, so it's going to be an interesting chess match that way. Hopefully, Eric Kendricks is back. And it may take some blitzing to do it, but Tom Brady is smart enough to read just about any blitz and take advantage of it. What I worry about is we have Dantzler and we have Gladney. They're both good. But when we go into the nickel, Gladney moves down into the nickel spot, and then we get Jones or what's
Boyd.
his face? Boyd, right? If I was Tom Brady and Jones or Boyd came in, that's where I'm throwing the football. So I expect Mike Zimmer. Judd Zolgad said this today. He wonders if on relatively easy games like last week, Mike Zimmer doesn't do that much prep. But he knows for a fact that on tough games that he's supposed to lose, like against Tampa Bay, he dreams up all sorts of wonderful stuff. And there's a lot of prep going in. Hopefully there is a lot of prep because otherwise Tom Brady can kill us. I'm also hoping that Tom Brady fell off the cliff last week and we don't have to worry about it much. But it's going to be rough to contain him and his receivers.
And what are you thinking, Flip? How do you thinking this one goes? Is Tom Brady dust at this point, or is it something we need to worry about? From your perspective, are you thinking the Vikings should kind of lay back and play it safe and hope that we can hold up in our pattern matching coverages or in zone coverage? Or are you thinking that this is one of those games we need to kind of play with reckless abandon and maybe just heat Tom Brady up, send pressure, and expect our offense to be able to match if they do happen to score points on us?
Yeah, this game's going to be damn near impossible, and I'm not saying that to discourage what the Vikings have done so far. I think a lot of people are looking at Tampa Bay at 7-5, looking at Minnesota at 6-6, and saying that if we win this game, it'll be just a small upset. No, if the Vikings win this game, it'll be a huge upset. Now, how do they do that? Again, it's going to sound boring, but I refer to all the things that they're doing poorly. Tackling. They started the game early on in the year. Cam Dantzler, Jeff Gladney missing a lot of tackles. Against the Panthers in week 12, the team missed 17 tackles. Against the Jaguars last week, they missed 12 tackles. So that's easy check off number one is you gotta block, you gotta tackle. The offensive line has got to block better. Number two, the special teams and the turnovers. Those are really hurting the Vikings. And we see that in points off turnovers. But also, if you look at Football Outsiders, they have points per drive stats. The Vikings are 29th in terms of defensive starting field position. The yard line where the opposing offense gets the ball is usually the 29th worst in the NFL. On offense, the Vikings are 30th in starting field position. We get the ball at our inside our own red zone, and we just make things so much harder for ourselves. So, what's been balanced by this easy schedule is all these easy mistakes that we're making that if we can clean them up, I truly do believe we can compete with anybody.
And to the point that David made earlier, so just taking a look at the quarterback comparison on PFF, Tom Brady, we think of Tom Brady as kind of cool under pressure, but this season his passer rating when clean, 109. Okay, you'd expect it, very good. Decent. However, when you get some pressure on him, that passer rating drops down to 49.
Ooh,
right?
Ooh.
So I mean. That's the thing. So it's a trade-off where we don't have a dominant rusher, but given what Tom Brady has been doing when he has been pressured, I guess, does that change your calculus at all when you think about it, Dave? Does that make you lean more towards adding some more risk to what we do to get Tom Brady off his spot?
And we've done it,
and we can make him nervous.
And we've done it before. where we've had heavy blitz games, right? And that we're going to have to do that to get pressure. That's going to be the key on defense to get him down at that 49 rating QBR for under pressure. And the only way we're going to do it is with blitz packages. So,
yeah, and let's be honest. Look, it's going to be it's going to have to be the game. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is when you think of Randy Moss and his rookie season, offensive rookie of the year, nobody can recall all 16 games that Randy Moss played.
No, but they can recall
everybody can recall that one game when he went off against the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving with Troy Aikman and Joe Buck in the booth, 3 catches, 3 touchdowns. Okay? We got the same boys in the booth. It's a big spot, playing a big time team. And so we need the game from Justin Jefferson, the game that locks up Rookie of the Year for him, and the game that puts the Vikings over the top. Same on the defensive side of the ball. You know, I don't like that nickname for Cameron Dancer. I don't like the needle. That just sounds weak to me. We need to start calling this man the Big Dance. Okay, people saying he needs to gain weight. Well, maybe he hasn't gained it in his muscle, but he's gained it in his mind and in his play, okay? The Big Dance has to have the game. I mean, we're talking Mike Evans here. We're talking Chris Godwin. And if they're not ready for the Big Dance, then we're going to find out on Sunday, and the Vikings are about to do some things.
All right, I like it. Big Dance. Flip. Mm-hmm. Start the hashtag. Get it going on game day. See if we can make this thing a thing. All right, so Dave, give me your Vikings player, maybe under the radar, maybe not. Who is the player that, for the Vikings to pull this off, we're going to be talking about after the game, as the person that came through, that did something maybe we weren't expecting to do, that played at a level we maybe haven't seen season to date?
Oh, I'd have to go on the defensive side, and it's got to be maybe Troy Dye. It depends who's starting, if Kendricks is back or not. Wilson's been playing well. You get a lot of tackles, maybe some, blitz, something like that. I would love to see Jones or Boyd step up. That would be sweet. That's the one I'd love to go on in the raw and say, holy shit. That's the one.
All right, we're locking you in. It's going to be one of the much maligned cornerbacks are going to have their breakout game, the game that propels them to potentially having a career with the Vikings beyond this season.
Yeah, in the permanent starting position.
Show up. And let's hope not the starting position. Maybe third quarterback.
You'll have Gladney and Dantzler, they'll be the third guy that comes in on the outside.
I like that. One of the corners stepping up. Flip, how about you? What are you thinking? And just also while you're on that vein, which player on the Bucs makes you the most nervous?
Well, let me start with the players on the Bucs. I'm really nervous about their defensive front. Levante David, their linebackers are really, really proficient, and knowing that the Vikings are going to run the ball, it's just we're going to have to rely on the pass very quickly, I think. Hopefully we preempt that and come out passing, but I think that, it wouldn't surprise me if the Vikings spend 2 or 3 drives just trying to run and failing against Tampa's defensive front. You want me to give you one name? It's Levante David. Obviously, I think everybody should be scared about Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Rob Gronkowski. It's almost like they have a quarterback that can't maximize his weapons right now. But those guys are studs. But Levante David is the one who can just wreck this game for us. A lot of people saying this might be a shootout. Well, if that Tampa front has its day, then it goes from shootout to blowout very quickly.
It may take some quick passes on Cousins' part.
For the Vikings, I'm going with rookie trifecta. Ezra Cleveland back. We need him back. And like I said before, these are the midterms. The game for the rookies. We've asked so much of them They've been amazing. And now again, it's that question of, can Ezra elevate his game in a spot where we clearly need him? We're clearly not as good without him. Can he elevate, open up just a little bit of those holes, a little bit of running room, help Dalvin Cook out, and then also hold up in pass protection? That'll make a world of difference for his quarterback. Let his receivers get up against those DBs. Ezra's got to have a game.
And this is one of his biggest tests.
Yeah.
This season.
All right.
Midterms.
Gentlemen, I love it. We did it. We went through. We were pretty damn positive on this show. Flip is back. Vikings at 500. Looking forward. Thinking playoffs. Talking upset. I love it. Vikings Jerome, tell us how you're feeling about it. And, if you're watching, tell a friend. Watch tomorrow. We're going to be back. The OG CTP crew is going to be up here talking about it. I'm sure we're going to hear a little bit from Yinka after Kirk Cousins played his not so great game in this game. But the Vikings won. So we're going to balance it out. We're going to talk. We're going to argue. We're going to chop it up. Maybe a bit of barbershop talk. Maybe JR telling us some stories from back in the day in the Durham area. But yeah, gentlemen, it was a lot of fun. Listeners, viewers, thanks for sticking with us. And yeah, Dave, over to you, my man.
I told y'all things would be better once we got to 500. Here we are. Doesn't it feel good? Doesn't it feel good, y'all? Let's go.
It's all part of Vlogmas, everybody. This was Vlogmas Day 8. Vlogmas Day 9 is tomorrow with the original Climb in the Pocket crew. Join us again at 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll be here for some great Vikings football talk. From there, be safe, be sound, and Skol!
Skol.
Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody.